Check the description for the following discount codes.
So I'm aware this is my first video about the new Assetto Corsa Rally, and it's not actually my first impressions, which is what my first video really should have been. I've only been able to try this game out, in spite of having a reviewer's code for the past 5 or 6 days. I've only been able to try it out yesterday, and the reason for that is because there is a bug. This bug prevented me from mapping my controls, and I reported the bug straight back to Supernova Studios as soon as I noticed it happening, which was immediately upon trying to play the game. And basically what happens is ACR registers like an Xbox controller pressing a button every second or so, as if you've got an Xbox controller in your hand and you keep pressing a button. What's bizarre about this is it registers it as button 135 from memory. I've never seen an Xbox controller with 135 buttons, so how this has happened, I don't know. And the problem is, when you're using a keyboard and mouse, and you're trying to set up your controls, every time you move the mouse, a second later, it flicks back as if someone's pressed a button on a controller. So let me start some script, which obviously means when I try and map controls, right? If I wanted to map my accelerator, for example, I managed to get it to click on map accelerator, and then it registers this mysterious Xbox input button press. And I've got no way for me to then correct that because it's constantly registering a button input. Anyway, what I decided to do, obviously like any logical PC person would, is unplug all USB peripherals aside from the ones you need, right? I need my wheelbase, I need my pedals, I need my shifter, I need my handbrake, and I need a keyboard and mouse, which is just one USB device in this case, right? It was still doing it. So let me show you this happening, and then you'll see what I mean. And then I'll explain what I did to fix it. So let's get some screen capture on the go. And this isn't really a fix, it's more of a workaround in all fairness. So right now, you can see at the top here we've got Q and E, and my mouse cursor is quite happily moving around uninterrupted, right? If you look down the bottom, Y is exit game, enter select, UV card, blah, 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 right? That's all working just fine, no problem at all. So I could go into settings, I could go into inputs, I could go over here to accelerator, I could click on it, I could press my accelerator pedal, and lo and behold, my accelerator pedal is mapped correctly and working. Now, that's all good. What I discovered was, if I have my wheelbase turned on, so let's just turn that on, that is what's causing this mysterious Xbox controller input. So I've just turned on my Assetto Invicta wheelbase. Now look, top the screen there, LB, RB, YAX, and then menu button, as if I was using an Xbox controller. And as I move my mouse cursor, look, it keeps flicking from keyboard input to controller input. Keyboard input, like as if someone's repeatedly pressing a button on a controller. So you try and click on your inputs, you get through, you go to map something like accelerator, and look, straight away it's registered button 135, and if you look at the accelerator, you can see the frequency at which this mysterious button that doesn't exist is actually inputting. So it's more than once a second. It's probably fluctuating between a quarter of a second and half a second inputs. So the thing to do to cure it, turn your wheelbase off, boom, instantly that input has stopped registering. I move my mouse and lo and behold, look, we're back to keyboard and mouse inputs, Q and E. I can come over here to my accelerator, I can press my accelerator, it is now mapped correctly and it works. So, let me just stop the screen capture. The reason it took me a few days to figure this out is two reasons. First of all, Supernova, or my contact at 505 it might even be, said, yeah, there's a few of you have reported this, we're working on it, we'll get back to you. I left it a few days, I never heard back. I loaded the game up day before launch, and there was an update, and I thought, oh, brilliant, there's an update. Maybe it's cured this problem, right? Fired up the game, and lo and behold, it wasn't happening. But I realised shortly afterwards, when I went to play the game, I hadn't turned my wheelbase on. Now, a lot of driving games or simulators, or games in general, if you don't have your peripherals powered up when you load the game, they don't register them as being there. So like if you load up, let's say we load up ACR, and we haven't turned our wheelbase on. If we then turn the wheelbase on, it doesn't notice that it's there. I'd have to come out of the game, load the game, turn my wheelbase on, then load the game up. But thankfully, ACR doesn't do that. I think ACC does actually. You need to have your peripherals turned on before you load it. Anyway, with ACR, you don't. You can load ACR up with your wheelbase turned off. I don't know if it's just exclusive to the Assetto wheelbases or the Invicta wheelbase specifically. I don't know whether it affects other brands because I haven't tried any other brands. But yeah, you can load the game up, map all your controls, apart from obviously your steering wheel. Then you can power on your wheelbase. And for me, it defaulted to using this steering wheel. I didn't have to map the steering wheel because I imagine, and I'm not going to try because I don't want to risk messing it up, I don't want to go into steering wheel, click on steering wheel axis, and it register that 135 mysterious Xbox button press, and me never then be able to map my steering wheel until this bug is fixed. So I ain't going to risk doing that. It defaulted to axis 1 as my steering wheel. Axis 1 is my steering wheel, so thankfully that wasn't a thing. And again, it might be different for you. I don't know what manufacturer wheelbases this is affecting, or even what models from different manufacturers. I just know with my Assetto Invicta wheelbase, if I turn the power on, it registers an Xbox pad pressing button 135, and it does it with or without the wheel attached. So it's literally just the base. Now what's interesting about this is if I go into the Windows USB game controllers panel and look at the inputs from the wheelbase, they are all perfectly fine. There's nothing fluctuating, there's no mysterious button presses. That's all working perfectly. It's a bug with ACR that for whatever reason, when this particular wheelbase, or maybe others, is turned on, it sees a repeated button impress from what it thinks is an Xbox controller and a button 135, which of course doesn't exist. In fact, if anyone's got an Xbox controller with 135 buttons, I'd love to see one. But yeah, they are aware of the bug, but this is how you can get around it for now, assuming that your setup also defaults to axis 1 for your steering input, and that you don't have to try and map it, because the moment I turn it on, flicker, 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 someone's pressing that mysterious button 135. Anyway, now that that is all working and I can actually play the game, I want to get a few more hours in it before I provide you with my first impressions.